Thank you very much indeed for your invitation. It's a great honor for me to open this conference today as a member of European Parliament, as you said, but I must admit as a city councillor of my city of Pau in the southwest of France as well, because I'm very proud that the university of my city is a partner in this beautiful project, and I would like to congratulate Christian Paroissin here for his constant commitment. At the time when we are trying at the European level to build a true European education area, projects like yours are at utmost importance. You are building bridges between students, teachers, and universities, while you are developing solutions for cross-border recognition of skill, and that's very important. I have improved some experience very near here because I am at the border with between France and Spain, and I've seen very, very, very interesting experiences. I think what you achieved with your ECBS project should serve as an example for the future, and particularly for the alliances of European university that will be in an integral part of the next Erasmus Plus program. You have told us about Erasmus Plus. Exactly as you know, this next Erasmus Plus program for the years 2021 to 2027 will be launched very soon, because indeed we are in 10th of December, so it's important now. We are in the hurry, and we are still negotiating the program. As a member of the Education Committee of the European Parliament, and as a shadow rapporteur for the Erasmus Plus program, I am part of a negotiation team with the Council and the European Commission. And I hope we will normally reach a final deal tomorrow night, as we achieved some great results on Monday, and I will give you a word about that. As we say in the European institution, when it comes to deal, nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. So the negotiation is still going on, and we can celebrate now. But I can tell you that we are close to a very good deal for a new Erasmus Plus program, really fit for the 21st century. If I come into details, I have to say that the program will be more inclusive, with financial top-up on grants and more measures toward people with fewer university. First, I have to say that we have achieved good negotiation at the budget level, because we have obtained a top-up of 2.2 billion of euros. So that was a great thing in these times of hard negotiations for budgets. So the program, as I said, the program will be more inclusive. The program will be also greener, with because Erasmus Plus, the previous one didn't have any green objective, but today we achieved to add new green indicator with financial measure for the green mobility of participants. And I have to say I'm very happy about that, because this new green part of the program is based on a report I wrote, and which was voted by the European Parliament back in September. Other point, the program will have really a broader scope, with the inclusion of new types of participants, as school children and support staff, and teachers as well for schools. And finally, the program will be innovative, with the inclusions of 3 new initiatives: the European Universities Alliances, the Centers of Vocational Excellence, and the Discover EU program. I particularly fought for the inclusion of the European University Alliances, and you're very close to this issue and project. In this time of global academic competition, I'm indeed convinced that Europe has all the necessary academic and human resources to make its voice heard and to make the excellence of its universities recognized worldwide. I really think that building genuine European curricula is a way forward, and that's our objective with these alliances, because we want to share skills, research, and to go toward this real European curricula that would be a step beyond. Once again, I am very happy that some of you are part of the first university alliances. It's a real asset to be able to build projects, common universities course, to organize exchanges of students and professors between universities, of course, which are more than partners, but really are allies when they take part in such projects. As universities, by taking part to such initiatives, you are building the future of European citizenship, and it's really a good pod for sharing culture, education, skills, and so on. I have to say that the digital and greener transition and the inclusion of people with disabilities, of socioeconomic problems, are to me the most important issues we have to tackle at the European level right now. And the latest is even more true with this pandemic we are facing. And I have to say that these alliances of European university tackle these issues of inclusion as well, because it gives opportunities to all students everywhere they are. I truly believe, can you hear me? Because I see that I have a poor connection. It's okay? Yes.
Yes, we still hear you.
Okay, thank you. I truly believe as well on the power of Erasmus Plus program to have a real impact on European citizens. Everyone knows someone who was once a participant, is a well-known and very beloved program of Europe. It makes it really concrete. And after 30 years, it was time for Erasmus Plus to be more ambitious. And I think that is what we aim for with this new program. To go back to your project, I really think that the experience you gathered on cross-border university is highly valuable. As often said, cross-border territories are Europe laboratories. More than many other universities, you are experienced in working closely with a university which belongs to a different national system and whose working language is not the same. So that's highly valuable, and we need your expertise. To conclude, I will be very happy to answer to your question, and I wish you a great and fruitful conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Farang, for the speech and the time that you have spent here to join us in this conference. And I very much like the idea that we develop here a new dimension of student mobility in Europe with the European Universities Initiative. And of course, I think when you look at the figures, it's still, we are beyond or underneath what we could do. I mean, when you look at the number of learners in Europe that really use the Erasmus Plus program, we have still some possibility to level this up and to get a higher number of students who really use the Erasmus Plus program. So hopefully with the European universities, they get more incentives to really do the student mobility and go cross borders and even more students, not just an elite, but be more inclusive, as you have said it. And just one question: when you say the Erasmus Plus program will be greener, how does this concretely work? I mean, in what way Erasmus Plus will be a greener program?
The simplest action is to allow higher grants for for students or people in mobility to choose greener way of moving. For example, sometimes it's cheaper to fly than take the train because you have low-cost companies, but you can make the choice to take the train, and you will be reimbursed for this kind of transportation. It was not the case in the previous program. As well, there was absolutely no indicators of the impact of the Erasmus Plus mobility. So we didn't know anything about that. So it's new, we can integrate that. And in my report, I made other inputs like having, it's a case really today, but to systematize some green offices in the university and so on, to have an education chapter in the mobility and to discover new practices, how which kind of transportation are you taking, how do you buy your food or something like that. It's really an education program in the program. It's a box in the box. But first, the first measure were about greener mobilities and how we give higher grants for that, and some instruction and indicators on the impact of the mobility, not to stop them, but to learn about it.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I see maybe since we have a little bit ahead of time, there's a question that we could maybe take, Sarah, out of the questions and answers section.
Yes, we got two questions. So the first question comes from Anne Bondry, and she's asking if this new Erasmus Plus, Erasmus, the new framework will push the French ministry to accept joint degrees. Apparently, this is not a very easy topic right now. What do you think?
Excuse me, I haven't understood very well about the French ministry. So,
if this new project will push the French ministry to accept joint degrees.
I don't know in this kind of detail yet, but afterward we will have the program, the application program. But I never heard about this kind of problem. But so I will try to know.
Yeah, it's about the joint degrees, I guess. I mean, indeed, in France, it is, the deliverance of degrees is very much driven by the national government. It's the Ministry of Ministère de l'Éducation who delivers the degrees, of course. But it's but I think the French system is not as flexible in a way to really deliver a European degree, for example, and
so there is an education summit today, but I will promise I will ask it to Mr. Blanquer of
okay.
our team.
But this is because it's in the European Universities Initiative. I know that the European degree is also one of the objectives, and so this will be interesting how the national states, the member states, will be flexible to really accept European degrees. Okay. What do you think?
I'm for it, exactly. And this is the purpose of the alliances of European universities. So that's the movement today. But I'll look at that in detail. Thank you.
Okay. And then the other question I see here is more on doctoral education. In what way in the new Erasmus Plus program will provide funding for doctoral students as well? Because I know that Erasmus Plus was more for undergraduate and master's level, a little less on the doctoral level. For that, it's more on the research side for Horizon 2020, etc. But do you think that there will be, is there a stronger effort also on doctoral students, mobility?
Exactly, because when it comes for these kinds of curricula, we have the same European Commissioner, Mrs. Gabriel. So she's on innovation and education. So that's a great thing because she's very aware of this topic. And so we have to link the Horizon 20 Horizon Europe with Erasmus Plus, but it's not in the core business of the Erasmus Plus program, I have to say. So let me check about this point as well, because I could make a clearer and sharper answer, but I think the fund will be from Horizon.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you very much for the questions and the answers you just provided. And yeah, if you could still stay, would be great.
I have to say that I have two simultaneous meetings. So
okay.
If I may, I have to leave you, but
okay.
My team will stay connected. So if you have some kind of question, we could answer this question later.
Okay, great. Yeah, but we already had the possibility here to take some of the questions, so I think we are fine. And thank you again. And then we go on. I wish you a good day. Stay safe. Take care.
Yes, I put my mask.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Now we go to the European Commission, and I'm happy to greet Clara Engels-Perregni. Clara Engels-Perregni is policy officer at the European Commission in the Higher Education Policy Unit of the Directorate General for Education, Youth, Sport and Culture. Clara is responsible for the Bologna process and for the policy areas quality assurance and the European Credit Transfer and Accumulation System, ECTS. Clara is also working currently on the development of the European approach to micro-credentials, and in that framework, you're here today, and I'm happy that you can take the time, spend the time with us today. With this community of cross-border workers in the field of higher education and research, but also many other participants, as you have already seen on the participants list. So the floor is yours. I hope that it works and that you can share your presentation.
Yes, good morning. Yes, I'm trying to share my screen, which will stop my video, but I hope I can switch it back.
Yes, I see the presentation, not yet in the presentation mode, but...
Yeah, yes, and I'm trying to switch on the video. Yes, so now it should work. Thank you very much for the invitation, and it's a pleasure for me to be here with you today, and it's an honor to speak after these committed words of the member of the European Parliament, which is with so much support to the areas I'm working on daily, and you are working daily as well. So it is indeed good hope that we have improved program in the next 7 years with more funding, substantially more funding than currently, and with some new initiatives. As far as I know, there will be some short-term mobility opportunities for doctoral students under the new program. But I'm not working on the mobility part currently, but this is what I heard, so it is to be verified, but I think there will be. And in today's presentation, I will tell you a little bit about the policy background we are working on now, and in particular about the European approach to micro-credentials, and we agreed also to that I will bring some examples from European Universities Alliances, how they work on micro-credentials currently. So the current European Commission has two very important areas to work on, and this is the green and digital transition, and all this in an inclusive way. And in this high quality education plays a key role. We heard it also in the keynote speech. And the European education area is what we see as a possible answer to these challenges, and all this supported by the Erasmus Plus program. In the last few months, we have published a number of policy initiatives, a number of policy documents setting out our plans for the next few years in terms of European policy making. You might have already studied the skills agenda. Probably it links very closely to your project aims, which was launched first during the summer, and it includes micro-credentials as one of its key actions. And the end of September, we launched the communication on the European education area, and also the Digital Education Action Plan. And these are the more concrete actions related to education and training. And within this, in the European education area communication, there is a whole chapter on higher education itself. It's the communication is not structured according to sectors, but higher education is a chapter in itself, and it has also chapters on inclusion, on teachers, for example. So really the key topics which we identified as important elements in the and important bottlenecks currently in different countries. And there's also communication on the European research area. And as we heard, the negotiations about the future programs are coming to an end soon, hopefully. And the Bologna Ministerial Conference has also adopted its communiqué with a vision for the next 10 years. So we have a lot of background there, and we can start rolling out more concrete actions now. One of the actions which has already started earlier as a pilot project is the European Universities Initiative. And we had already 2 pilot calls in the last 2 years, and close to 300 higher education institutions are already involved in these alliances, 41 alliances from all over Europe, from 31 countries, because the Erasmus Plus countries are also eligible for participation. It's a bit wider than the EU itself. And one very important feature within the European universities alliances is that they work both on education-related issues and research to really link the 2 dimensions of the universities closer, and also they are encouraged to have a very strong outreach to society. These are the small statistics from the second application round, which the selection was finalized in the summer. So there are 24 new alliances, and the average partner size is 4 to 9, and or average is actually 7, but 4 to 9 partners, and they cover a wide range of countries. Here, this is a graph which shows how many institutions are involved in this initiative from the different countries. And the orange color shows the 2019 data, and the red one this year's data. So it is, in our view, a very nice geographical balance and good coverage. And we are also very glad to see that the different types of higher education institutions are well represented. Especially in the second round, there were much more applicants from universities of applied sciences, and also technical universities, medical universities, arts universities are represented next to the majority of comprehensive universities. And a little bit more concretely about the micro-credentials. It is a joint initiative between the commissioners Maria Gabriel and Nicolas Schmidt, and it is a joint initiative because it has dimensions from education and training, but also it has a strong skills relevance, labor market relevance. Also, the changing nature of work is requiring quick adaptation of workers to new skills needs, and higher education, full courses in higher education cannot really provide this, while other opportunities outside of higher education are probably less trusted or less known. So there is a lot of variety of different courses, but the learners are not fully confident in their choice. They are not really guided in their choice, and we would like to help with this discussion at European level to have some more clarity and more transparency in this area. And micro-credentials are a way to help skills development also in the aftermath of the COVID-19 crisis. And we also see that that demand for shorter courses online or in a blended mode has definitely increased in the last few months. This year we have established a small consultation group which met only 3 times. It is not a permanent group, so we really wanted to restrict the number of meetings to discuss this topic, to map what is the common understanding, what is the understanding of micro-credentials, and what could be the way forward. And the final report of this group will be presented actually on Monday, so we are very close to that. And as you can see, there were different stakeholders involved in this group. And the common definition which the group agreed is visible here. It is with bold, you can see the short version. So it is a proof of the learning outcomes that the learner has acquired following a short learning experience. And this short learning experience is deliberately a vague definition, because that was the outcome of the discussions, that there is so much variety of courses which could be still reliable and trusted, that we should not limit them too much. So, or whether we limit them a little bit more, that is still possible. But for the time being, it is anything from 1 ECTS to almost a full degree. So for the time being, it's not very very restricted, but what we see that around 4-6 ECTS are the most common courses for micro-credentials. And another important element for micro-credentials is the assessment against transparent standards. And this is where they are certainly more than a MOOC, because assessment is here a must. And also the presentation of the learning outcomes, and a little bit more details about how the learning took place, and what at what level, etc. This should be also documented, and then this should be underlying information behind the certificate the student gets. And all this can be presented already in a digital way, in an electronic format. And Europass provides the possibilities for that, but Europass is not the only possibility for that, but this is something which is out there for use in wider scale. And quality is extremely important for recognition, and this is the question which stays open for the future, because for higher education institutions, quality is quite clear, that they guarantee the quality of their courses through internal quality assurance. There is external quality assurance verifying this. The most difficult question, probably, which is still open, is how to gain more information about the quality of courses provided by non-higher education providers, by private providers, for example. And this is a question which certainly needs further discussion. What we also discussed is that action is needed at different levels. At European level, there is the room for setting the framework, setting some common criteria, some rules, the standard, and also providing funding and incentives for governments to look at their higher education system and to see whether they can have more lifelong learning and continuous learning courses provided by higher education institutions, looking at the funding framework and investigating whether there is a possibility to give more funding for these purposes. And there are different EU funds which can be used for skills development, lifelong learning, which could be used also for universities. And this could be planned by the structural funds, for example. Erasmus is there. Erasmus will provide funding for experiments and pilot projects with micro-credentials in almost all of the key actions. At the moment, probably mainly in key action 3, which is for cooperation project, and key action 2 for strategic partnerships, for example, or knowledge alliances. But also in mobilities, there will be shorter term mobilities possible. So there is room for new ideas, for experimentation and pilots. And it's also important for institutions to start thinking about their sustainable business models for shorter courses, which are of high quality. And there is one important thing I forgot to mention at the beginning, that micro-credentials should be stackable, but there is currently agreement that they should not be they shouldn't be stackable until a full degree, so they shouldn't replace full degrees, but enrich the currently available degree courses and provide flexibility for the learner, because for micro-credentials, the learner is very much in the center of the learning. The learner decides more about the courses he or she takes, and it is very well possible in for graduates when they come back from the labor market to enrich their skills sets. But it is also possible for students who are currently still in higher education, except that they should not replace full degrees, as I mentioned. And we also see a very important dimension of inclusion in offering micro-credentials to help the transitions from schools and VET mainly for disadvantaged students to enter higher education in a smoother way, probably, or to realize that they can also study at a higher education level. If not starting with a full course, but perhaps with a micro-credential. But this is an area which needs particular attention. It's easier to develop micro-credentials for people in the labor market than for students who are from more disadvantaged backgrounds. But this is very, very important for us that they are not forgotten, and micro-credentials are used for them as well. We will publish then on Monday the report of this expert group, and there will be wide public consultations in the first half of next year, because we are preparing a council recommendation for micro-credentials for labor, lifelong learning and employment purposes for end 2021, so in about 1 year. And as I mentioned, I would like to give you some examples of micro-credentials in European Universities Alliances. The Alliance ECIU is the one which is the most vocal advocate of the use of micro-credentials in their programs. They have challenge-based teaching very strongly. And one of the main offerings they have in this regard are micro-credentials, because the European Universities Alliances are working on a joint delivery of educational content. They are working on joint programs, and they do a lot of mobility activities, but these shorter courses leading to something tangible, something concrete in a very interdisciplinary way. These are basically micro-credentials. And in the ECIU Alliance, which is a big alliance of a big number of higher education institutions, and also a big number of public stakeholders and industry stakeholders, they are creating a set of micro-credentials which are available for their students and wider. One of the ECIU member universities is the Dublin City University. They have, for example, also their own micro-credentials, offering on the Future Learn platform, and they are planning to develop also more of these. Then another example is the Una Europa Alliance, which has a little bit less partners, but very, very strong universities. So the classical comprehensive universities. And yes, they have focus areas in their work, and currently they are planning to have join a micro-credential in the area of sustainability. They are planning it now. Here you can see with what kind of, I find it a nice overview of mapping of the areas they are working on and the way how they do it, what kind of joint opportunities the students have. Excuse me. And here you can see that they have also thought about principles for what kind of joint innovative formats they are offering. And all these offerings are very soundly based on pedagogical considerations, and they're for them it is very important that they are all of high quality. So they are still developing these micro-credentials. It has not been offered yet, and they have what they call micro-credentials are actually a set of MOOCs where learners will be able to choose between different pathways and create their own set of, I think 4 MOOCs will for them give one micro-credential. This is also one of the options, the stacking. We call according to the European draft definition, which I showed you before, a MOOC with a solid assessment would already qualify as micro-credential, but in this alliance, a micro-credential means a set of MOOCs, and that is also possible. Then the UFA alliance, they have their own system for their students to improve their skills, how they skills development, and they build also on micro-credentials as one of the offerings. It is they have just launched this system, and you can find a little bit more information from on their website. But they have it now more for students, but they also want to have it for their staff, academic and other staff, and also later to even wider for not their own students. And from the European Universities Alliances which were selected this year, we cannot really give examples which exist, but I could look into the applications what they plan, because they are just starting with their common work, and here half of the selected alliances have declared at application stage that they will establish courses or programs based on micro-credentials. And this challenge-based approach seems to be also very, very widespread, interdisciplinarity, and also that they co-design it with associate partners. So not only the universities, but with the wider partnership. And the thematically, they many of them will target this digital and green transformation and economy. And the micro-credentials are also suitable for professional development, and some alliances will look into this as well. And finally, I would like to give you 2 examples from national levels. In the Netherlands, there is the National Action on Ecbs, where the government financed a pilot project which developed a joint infrastructure for higher education and VET institutions to issue digital certificates, and they worked with 17 higher education institutions at the beginning, but now it's open for all higher education institutions. They provide also the IT background for it, but also in the ministry there is a policy development ongoing and reflection on how they will react on micro-credentials and how they will incentivize probably the use of micro-credentials in higher education. And I will go a little bit more in detail on that in the next slide. But the other national example is from Ireland, where just now a 4 years project is starting, also from national funding, to have a similar system for micro-credentials, and they are also trying to engage them with enterprises, and they also develop a portal which should help to guide the learner through the offers which are out there. And these are the examples from the Dutch project, from their pilot project, from the 17 universities which participated, for what kind of purposes they used micro-credentials or badges. It was not fully on micro-credentials, it was widely more widely on badges. Some used it for extracurricular activities, some for staff development, and some to have more flexible pathways for students. And they have a report in English which is available, and if you're interested in the more concrete examples, more details on these examples, it's really nice, a very nice overview. This is also from their slides. They call micro-credential mainly what is used in the formal context in accredited higher education, while in the non-formal context, where they don't provide credits, they are more badges. So this was my overview. I hope.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it was great to have your point of view out of the machine room, I would say, at the European Commission, where you were currently working on the micro-credentials, and to see what is already going on in the existing European universities alliances on this topic, but also on broader alliances that exist like ECU. So it was good to hear that. And in a way, we have been dealing with all this in the ECBS project already 1.5 years ago. So we have been pioneering already this work, and it will be interesting for us to see how we can catch up with this initiative. But now I want to maybe take the question and answers after the next presentation and try to do it before the break. And I would then pass the floor over to Émilie Desconnet. But I think she's not on the speaker level yet. There she is. So and also Christian Paroissin, both from University of Po, and who have been leading the project from the very beginning until now. And yeah, Émilie is currently working at the international office at the University of Po. She is in charge of all projects in research, higher education, doctoral education with cross-border universities like Zaragoza, University of the Basque Country, Public University of Navarra. Hello, Émilie, there you are. And Christian Paroissin is Associate Professor in Applied Mathematics at the University of Po. And since 2015, Christian has been also served as Institutional Officer for International Mobilities and Erasmus Plus projects at the University of Po. And with Émilie, Christian is co-head of the ECBS project. So Émilie and Christian, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, János. Can you see my presentation?
Not yet, you have to share it, écran
partagé. I have shared it. Let's...
You have to double click.
Yes, I have done it. Okay, now it's okay. Is it okay for you?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, János, for the moderation of this event. Good morning to everybody. It's a real pleasure to see that so many people are attending this seminar today. With Christian, we're going to talk about the results of our European Cross-Border Skills Project. Okay, so the ECBS project is an Erasmus Plus project funded by the European Commission. in the framework of the Erasmus Plus program. It's a strategic partnership, and it's a 3-year-long project, which almost finished with the closing event, which is today. So first of all, let me give you some details on the genesis of our project. As you told us before, János, the University of Pau et des Pays de l'Adour is working for many years with Spanish universities on cross-border collaboration, not only on research, but also on higher education and doctoral education. In 2015, we decided to organize at the university a specific seminar with other European cross-border universities. The idea was to share experience and best practices. We concluded that we share the same objectives and issues. So we decided to create a network with these partners and to propose in 2017 an innovative project around cross-border issues. Who are the Ecbs partners? We are 9 partners in the different borders of France. We have Spanish partners from the University of Zaragoza and the University of the Basque Country on the French-Spanish border. There is also the University of the Greater Region, which is an association of 6 universities, and the University of Saarland, which belongs to the University of the Greater Region, but he takes part in the project as a full partner. There is also the Eucor, which is based on the Upper Rhine region. The University Savoy Mont Blanc and the University de la Vallée d'Aosta between the French and Italian border. And we have also as partner Prof en Poche, which is based in Pau. It's a non-academic partner. It's a company. We also have an associate partner, which is the Commu d'Aquitaine. So here is a map of all the partners. 16 universities are concerned by our Ecbs project, sorry. What are the goals of the Ecbs project? The main objective is to propose a certification of the cross-border skills that are gained by all the users in the different institutions. So the first objective is to highlight the skills developed by all the users in each institution during their cross-border experience. The objective is to have an overview of all the skills which are gained by all the users. The second objective is to elaborate tools in order to articulate and to assess the skills. We will see later on which tools we have developed in the framework of the project. And then the last objective is to develop and to share experiences and best practices between all the partners, because we are going to share some tools and dispositives. Who is the target audience of the project? There are 2 levels. The first one is that the project is open to the all academic community. Not only the students can value their skills, but also the staff, academic staff and administrative as well. And the second target audience is people from external people from local authorities and people from company, institutions, and also people in a long life learning process. So our project is proposes 4 intellectual outputs which are interconnected. And the first one is the elaboration of a catalog of existing devices and tools. The second one is the framework of cross-border skills. The third one is the certificate, and the last one is a platform. So I'm going to present you the catalog and the framework, and Christian will talk about the certificate and the platform. So for the first one, the idea is to identify in each institution what are the cross-border programs that are proposed for the users in order to help them to develop cross-border experiences and to gain new skills, new transversal skills. So we use the specific methodology. The first one was to design a survey. At the very beginning of the project, we decided to design a survey that we sent to all the institutions. And the objective was to fill in the survey and to describe each tool that is proposed in the institution, and that facilitates the acquisition of skills. So the survey was online, and we collected all the data of the survey, and now we can have a specific PDF catalog, which is in English. With a list of more than 160 tools, which are available on the website of the project. So this PDF catalog is free, the access is free for everybody. And we also have an interactive catalog, which is available on the platform that we have set up in the framework of the project. This interactive catalog is only, the access of this interactive catalog is for the partners of the project. The second intellectual output is the framework of cross-border skills. So we, as a methodology, first of all, research work was done by some members of the project. And the idea was to identify the literacy which exists on cross borders, on skills, and the idea was to prepare a first draft of skills. The second step was to test the framework of skills on users. So the first draft was sent to all the institutions, and the institution conducted some interviews with students, staff, and external actors in order to test the framework of 15 skills. After these interviews, the framework of skills were adapted, and we now have a new version of the framework that you will see later on the teaser. There is also a collection of use cases. The idea is to illustrate the framework. I mean that for each competence you have a specific use case. The idea is to guide the user and in the understanding of the skill, and it's important to help him to well understand the description of the skills. We now have the final version of the framework. The framework has been translated into 6 languages: in Basque, English, French, German, Italian, and Spanish. Here you have an example of the first competencies and the first skills that appear in the framework. Okay, now I will give the floor to my colleague Christian Paroissin, who is going to present you the certificate of cross-border skills and the platform, and all the presentation will be available on our website. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Emily. So you have, I think, to stop to share your screen.
Okay. Is it okay?
No. On the bottom, you can stop sharing. No?
Arrêter. There should be a button, arrêter la présentation.
Yeah. Okay. Now it's okay.
Merci.
Yeah. Okay. So, here should be good. No, not yet.
Yes. Just from the very beginning, yeah, or just a diaporama. This would be great. Yeah.
Great. It's okay here. Okay.
Yes.
So I will present you the third Internship output. So it's a certification of cross-border skills. So the first step was to define a process to validate one skill, so each skill of the framework. And then when we have this process, we define a certification scheme. So this is a scheme where we describe, so I will show you the output, yes. So this is an internal document, so it's not public. So the output was a validation map. So this validation map is indeed a non-public document, so it's just for internal use. So at this stage, I've decided not to publish this online, but we can, of course, share with universities who are interested with these topics. And so this document, this validation map, is in fact a tool for the evaluators. So in the framework, you have some, for each skill, you have learning outcomes. And in this document, we describe which kind of evidences we expect to prove the acquisition of these skills. And there are also the evidence validation requirements. So this document is just yes, for the evaluators. And then for anyone, so for each partner, we have to define the way we want to deliver the certification. So at this stage, I have to precise that there is 2 possibilities with that to any partner. So the first one was to give to deliver the certificate as a paper, but also we have the possibility to deliver open badges, and there is also the possibility to use both. Okay, so for some of us, we propose only certification, and some others prefer to use open badges. So it's a very open, but the idea was to have a common validation map, so to share this tool, and also to have even it's specific to each partner, but to have a way for the certification procedure, yes, a process to define how each partner will do. And this also include an annual calendar. So the last internal output is a platform, which is of course based on all the previous outputs we have produced. So the methodology was the following one. So first we defined the needs. So this was based on, of course, what we have decided in the previous internal outputs. This helps us to write a specification notebook where we describe what should be the practical implementation of the iOS 3. Then we set up the platform, and so we did the implementation. And so to reach this purpose, we have used several tools like Moodle, so it's open source software. And also, as you will see later, the platform will contain a virtual assistant, a chatbot. And to do this, we use Raza. And last, we use Mara. Mara was used for managing the framework. Okay. And so also we implement, of course, open badges. So we have performed some tests for improve the platform to get something which is nice to use. And so we have some feedbacks from staff and from students to this purpose, but it is still a work in progress, despite the project is finishing soon. But anyway, we have some job to do there. And so as a conclusion, so we have a platform, an online platform. So this platform is open to everyone with anonymous access, but only with some restricted functionalities. So for those who get connected anonymously, they can have access to the catalog, okay, of the devices, of the programs, and also to the framework. So it's another way to, of course, these two documents are available on the website of the project, but this is a different way to explore this document. Okay, so this platform is available as a web application. Okay, so you have the different URL on the top of the slide. On the bottom of the slide, so a web application, but there is also some version for iOS and for Android. So I don't show you some screenshot because after we have a short teaser for the presentation of the platform, it will be better than some screenshot. So just to describe you the process, so for the user, okay. So it's divided in 5 different steps. So the first one, the user has to explore and to understand, of course, the 15 skills which are in the framework. Okay. And then you have to select the skill he or she assumed to gain during his cross-border experience. So it's more or less something it's considered as a self-evaluation at this stage. Okay. So this stage is public for everyone. Okay. And to help the user to do these 2 steps, you can use virtual assistant. So there is a chatbot on the application yes, to find to understand which skill you have to select. And also you can use, as I told before, there was also use case which has been collected. So this use case are used to illustrate the different skills. So this use case are available in different languages, in English for some, or in French, German, and so on. And so the user can read this to get illustration of the skills, and it can help the user to determine which skill he thinks he believes to gain. Then, and at this stage, the user have to log. So it's the 3 remaining steps. It's just for a user from the university in the project. So you have to prove the acquisition of the selected skills. Okay. So to this is you have to upload some documents and write a short explanation of why these documents are a proof and evidence of the acquisition of skills. Of course, each document can be used for several skills. Okay. It's not one document for one skill, but it could be one document for several skills. Okay. Then you upload this, and when you have finished this step, it submits a request for certification, and then there is a committee, there is a local committee who will examine the request. Okay, so yeah, and then if he succeeds, he gets the certification. So either a certificate or open badges. Okay. To conclude, just to show, to explain you what we did also, we have several multiplayer events during this. So hopefully we did it last year in September, between September and December 2019. So before the COVID crisis, hopefully we did this before. So we have organized several meetings, and the audience was different. So in some cases, it was with students or PhD students or for staff. And of course, we include academic and non-academic staff because it's a project leading concerning everyone. And also, there is some different situations. So you can see on the picture, there was some events were organized for a small group. And the idea in this case was to work on the framework, to understand the skills, to try to explain them what we understand for each skills. And sometimes it was a larger group who were concerned. So my last slide is about the future of the Ecbs project. Okay, so there is some remaining work to do. So we have to deploy the certificate in all partner universities. So there is still some, for some of us, not for all of us, there is still some work to do, okay? Because it could be a long time to have an official certificate for those who have decided to do this in this way. Also, we were happy to include other universities from different European border areas. So I think there is some of you who are in the audience who are coming from different parts of Europe. So it will be great things to welcome you. And of course, one thing we have to think is about enlarging the target audience. So as Emily told you previously, the primary audience is students and staff from universities, okay? But we can think that this platform, could be useful also for people working in local authorities, I think, like in France, conseils départementaux, who are working in project with colleagues in the cross-border area, or there is maybe some cities where with the cooperation with the homologues in the other side of the cross-border, of the border. And the last thing we have to do also is to promote the platform to make that students or staff use it more and more. Okay, so thank you for your attention. So you have our contacts. So for Emily and I, we have the website of UCBS, and you have the platform which is available so as for you in the different operating system.
Thank you.
So, thank you. Yes, and just a few pictures of the member of the project, of course, to remember and to thank them to participate to this great project.
Okay, thank you very much, Christian, for the presentation. Now, just to give you to make it short, we also have a teaser that we would like to show. So, Christian, if you could stop sharing your screen, and then I would make it run here. Arrêtez la présentation en haut à droite.
En haut à droite. Yeah, no,
okay. Otherwise, thank you. And then I will show you.
Are you a student, an administrative staff member, or have you had at least one cross-border experience and you'd like to highlight the skills you have gained through those experiences? The European Cross-Border Skills Platform is the right tool for you. It has been designed through 15 skills: communication, intercultural sensitivity, adapting, problem solving, teamwork and collaboration, organization and time management, learning, conflict resolution and negotiation, critical thinking, strategic and innovative thinking, decision-making, leadership, systems thinking, work ethic, consciousness, service orientation. The ECBS platform is a tool which allows you to identify your skills and obtain a certificate for them. You can use a map to visualize which are the devices, tools, or programs set up by your university about cross-border cooperation. On the app, select the skills you think you have gained during your cross-border experience. Some use cases are proposed to illustrate the meaning of each skills in the ECBS project. You can export those identified skills to use them on your resume, social networks, and so on. In order to obtain your certificate, you will need to upload a series of documents for evidence and explanation of these skills. Once you have submitted your request, a local committee will review it and issue the certificate. Thank you for your interest on the ECBS platform. A project supported by the European Commission through the Erasmus Plus program.
I hope that it worked out and you all got could be able to see the short teaser. So now, yeah, we are already at 11 o'clock. So, and unfortunately, we won't have a break, or I won't have a break as a moderator of this whole session. But it's fine. We can continue. But maybe we could still try to answer some of the questions that are in the section. Sarah, please.
Yes, first question to Clara Ines-Perrenier concerning the Dutch system she presented. There's somebody who wants to know if it works with close neighbors in Germany or Belgium. Could you maybe answer this question very shortly?
Yes, so this is for the time being the Dutch development for their higher education institutions, but SURF, this organization which developed it, is very, very open to any dialogue. So I'm sure if you contact them, I can also provide a name, contact detail. I'm sure they will give some more detailed information, and probably there is also some room for cooperation.
Thank you very much. And would it be possible to get your presentations? Some participants are very interested in it. And if you're fine with that, I would propose that those who are interested write an email to us, to info@eucor-uni.org, and then we can transfer the presentation if you are fine with that, Mrs. Ines-Perrenier.
Yes, of course.
Okay, very fine. Thank you. So then there's another question concerning the project, the ECBS project. One question is about the 15 skills, but I think the teaser already showed what skills that are. And another question is how many skills you have to acquire to get the certificate. So it's a question about the certificate. I don't know, Emily, maybe you could answer this question.
Each institution is free to decide how many skills the user has to obtain in order to obtain the certificate. So.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's up to each institution. Yeah. Theoretically, it can be also a certificate only for one skill.
Yeah, it can be an open badge also.
Yeah,
Some universities opted for an open badge.
Yeah, there's both possibilities, as you have seen in one of the first screens, that there is one possibility to get the badge, and the other possibility would be to get a certificate. And
for those that opted for the certificate, they are free to decide the certification process and to decide the number of skills the user has to validate.
Okay.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you.
I think we are through for the moment with the questions, and I would then thank you again, Clara Engels-Perrenier, for having joined us for this session. And I hope that you can still stay at least in the background and following the concrete examples that we will now present in the next part of our session here. So this I would then, as you have seen already on the program, probably we now present concrete examples of cross-border cooperation in the field of higher education, where our groupings to work on enhancing the student mobility cross-border. And there is one example of the Greater Region that will be presented. Another example will be presented of the region of France, cross-border region of France and Italy, the Alpes-Savoy region, and another example of the region of the Pyrenees, the cross-border region of France and Spain. And with all these examples, we want to show that a lot of things already exist and work, and what we could eventually learn from these examples for of course, other ongoing initiatives in the field of student mobility or in the field of micro-credentials. And I would, to start the whole session, present first one example of our Eucor region. And unfortunately, my colleague from University of Haute-Alsace cannot present it himself or herself, but I will do that at her place. And I would then share my presentation here in a minute, just to give you an insight on what we are experiencing here on the level of Eucor. I hope that you see it now. So what I mean, Eucor has been mentioned quite a lot of several times already this morning. Eucor is the grouping of these 5 universities in the cross-border region of France, Italy. I'm sorry, France, Germany, and Switzerland. And you see here the member universities are on the German side, the University of Freiburg and KIT. On the French side, University of Strasbourg, University de Haute-Alsace, and in Switzerland, University of Basel. And what I would like to present you here today is a concrete program that University of Haute-Alsace is running, so one of the member universities of Eucor. And it's about a free course, or let's say an optional course that has been developed, a so-called Unité d'enseignement libre, UE, libre, for the French participants who are joining today. They probably know what this is about already, but for those who are not French, I will try to present this here briefly. What UE Libre is. UE Libre are chosen out of a catalog that is designed by the French university, in this case here, University de Haute-Alsace. They have a catalog of different courses that can be freely chosen. For example, a course in the field of cultural activities, theater, singing, or other activities, but it can be also sports, and it can be some sort of social engagement. But in this catalog, the University of Haute-Alsace has introduced also a free course, or UE Libre, in the field of cross-border mobility. And the main motivation was that University of Haute-Alsace is really close, of course, to at least 2 member universities of Eucor. Freiburg is only in Germany is only 45 kilometers away, so 55 minutes by train, and Basel is even closer, only 25 minutes by train. And the idea here was to give the students the opportunity to explore the member university on the other side of the border, but not giving them too much pressure neither. I mean, it's what initially has been presented by Clara already, is the whole motivation of inclusion. I mean, student mobility should not be an exclusive thing for only some specially gifted students who do it, but it should be as inclusive as possible and be available for as many students as possible to really create here a European student mobility. And so the course that is proposed by Université de Haute-Alsace is a weekly course in a partner university of Eucor. It is going over 1 or 2 semesters. As I said, there is no need to validate the course. It followed in the host university. The validation, I mean, no validation of, let's say, tests or exams, but the validation is more on a lower level, let's say, with a logbook and an experience report that has to be drawn, and an overall defense that is organized at the end. So, and what is also important here to know is that the students are really accompanied during these 1 or 2 semesters. So there's an introduction meeting, intermediate meeting. There's this logbook that I've already mentioned, and the oral defense. And it really should allow students to make the step across the border and do a first experience in cross-border mobility, because it's not a thing that is open to everybody, maybe also from cultural backgrounds or social backgrounds. And that's where I personally really like this this program, because it's a low level. It allows low level mobility, and it really is inclusive. Yeah, the added value is listed here. It allows to discover how German and Swiss universities work for French students. It's really different and on many levels. It also improves the language level, or maybe gives incentives to learn more the language of the neighbor country. And it also develops intercultural competences, a better understanding of the university system of the neighbor country and its culture. And in a way, it's of course a very concrete example how the European campus Eucor can really be implemented on a wider scale and reach out to more students. So, and I have one quote here just to show or give you a concrete feedback. Studying at the University of Basel. So this is a student who was from Haute-Alsace, Université de Haute-Alsace in France, and has done a free cross-border study unit in Basel. Studying at the University of Basel opened me up to another culture and gave me self-confidence. I was able to improve my language level while discovering another way of being, another way of studying. This step strengthened my professional project of working in Basel as a chemical engineer. I'm now planning to continue my master's studies at the University of Basel. So it really shows that it can be a door opener, this low-level mobility, which is not completely linked already to a validation of an exam or a seminar work, but it's more just, in German you would say Schnupperkurs. It's a way to sneak in to the courses at the member university. So this is what I wanted to share with you, and I think maybe this would be the first step of a concrete example. And now I would like to go on with the University of the Greater Region and ask my colleagues Leslie Mollerstoff on stage, and as well Peter Tischer, who are from the cross-border region of Germany, France, Luxembourg, and Belgium, the so-called Greater Region. And Leslie Mollerstoff is a French teacher as a foreign language, and she worked in different institutions in France and Luxembourg. She's now working at the University of Luxembourg as a research and development specialist. She co-coordinated with Yves Lejeau the Erasmus Plus project LCGR, which will be presented in a minute. And she's still working on the extension of the course, of course, to other partners. And she also takes part in the Erasmus Plus project RecTech and does research on blended learning and linguistic tandems. Hello, Leslie. And then Peter Tischer, who is from the Saarland University, studied Romance language and English philology in Erlangen and Lille. Peter has been longtime director of the Language Center of Saarland University since 1997. And from 2014 to 2020, Peter has been president of the National Association of Language Centers in Higher Education in Germany, which is the AKS, Arbeitskreis der Sprachenzentren an Hochschulen. And Peter is responsible for the Saarbrücken part of this Erasmus Plus project LCGR, which will be presented in a minute. So now, Leslie, the floor is yours, and I would then ask you to share the presentation, please.
Yeah, Peter is going to start and to share the presentation.
Okay, thank you for the introduction, Janusz. I hope everybody can see the screen.
Yes, I see it.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, great. Now, again, thank you for giving us the opportunity to present our project here to a large audience. Before I start, I'd like to maybe thank Yves Lejeau, who coordinated together with Leslie Mollerstoff this project from the University of Luxembourg. Unfortunately, she can't be here due to time constraints, but she sends a warm welcome, hi to everybody. Now, when we started this project, we sat together and asked ourselves the question, how can we improve students' preparation for a mobility experience? And our basic answer was, we should do this together. Universities, language centers should do this together, teach together, and we should allow our students to work together with other students from their respective target countries. Now, when we started this, we were able to profit from the fact that we already were very close. We profited from the network we had in the University of the Greater Region. All the language centers already knew each other. And we profited from the fact that we were pretty close to each other. As you can see, the distances range between 50 kilometers and around 250 kilometers. You won't see the countries, the cities here, but they're on the right-hand side. So we have Liège, Luxembourg, 3 German ones, and University of Lorraine that has 2 sites. And our goal was to establish a common mobility preparation programs for all the students of our various universities. And what we came up with was a hybrid course. And I think this ties in pretty well with what we have heard earlier, that digitalization is a big issue, not only during Corona times. Now, our hybrid course has 3 basic phases. The first phase, the longest one, is the mobility preparation, which takes place in the respective home universities. And this mobility preparation in turn has three basic elements. It has an online learning platform with lots of information, lots of exercises based on a Moodle platform. Then we have a tandem scheme, which is done based on that platform, in which already the students of the different universities can work together online on different projects we set out for them. And in order to accompany the students at their respective home universities, there's an on-site local tutoring for the different student groups at the various universities. This takes place more or less simultaneously. It doesn't have to be exactly simultaneous. Many of you will know that one of the huge problems is that we don't all share the same university calendars. But we basically started during the same term. It's supposed to end at the same time because our next phase, oh, sorry, I forgot one thing, to mention one thing. Of course, we are looking into even more digitalization with the Corona crisis. So a lot of these things, for especially the tutoring, can be done now also via an online platform. So we simulate the in-person tutoring. Yeah, but the whole online mobility preparation scheme culminates in what we call a retreat. This is where the students from the different universities actually meet in one central location. And again, I would like to remind you this we can do very well within our Greater Region Association because the distances are never very far. We did two retreats, big retreats so far. First one was, for example, in Luxembourg. And in that, students practice the language, they work on intercultural issues, and they work together on projects during a 2-day workshop. And the third phase is basically sending them off to their respective mobilities. And now I'd like to ask Leslie to continue.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Peter. Yeah, okay. So I would like to continue with the structure of the course. So you can see at the top the initial or the original structure that Peter just presented. So as you can see, we had the mobility preparation, the retreat, and then the mobility. But now we have two, let's say, new structures. The first one is clearly because of the Corona crisis, and it's almost the same as the initial one, but without the retreat, as we can't meet in person. And the second one, which is maybe a bit more new, is the assistance aspect of the course, because of students, of incoming students in our universities who asked to be able to take part of, to take the course actually, while doing their mobility in our university. So it's the same course, but instead of a preparation, it's more like an assistance for students while doing their mobility. So yeah, you can go on, Peter. Last but not least, I want to speak about the content of the online part of the course, which is, as Peter said before, the main part, and which is on Moodle, and which is divided into 5 phases. So we have more or less 40 activities, pedagogical activities, and these activities are divided into these 5 phases. So these 5 phases represent 5 typical stages of any mobility a student can do. So before leaving, so things students can do or has to do before leaving. things he will have to do once he has just arrived, living abroad, studying, and getting credit. This framework is common to our 6 universities, so we all have the same stages, phases, but all the activities are very specific to our own city and our university. So that's why this framework is easy to transfer to another university, another context. And that's why we also developed a more general pathway, because we have 8 versions of this course, 1 per university. So 1 for Saarbrück, Trier, and Kaiserslautern, which is in German, 1 for Lorraine, Liège, and Luxembourg, which are in French and German as well for Luxembourg. And as we saw that a lot of students wanted to go to Germany, but not necessarily in Saarbrücken, Trier, or Kaiserslautern, we developed a more general version of the course, which is Deutschland. And we are looking into the production of a general version for France, because we have the same demand from students, German-speaking students who want to go to another country, another city, sorry, in France. Yeah, I think that's all for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this insight of this interesting project. And as far, I mean, we've discussed already before about it. I think what is interesting here is that it is a way to accompany and to follow students throughout the mobility process. And I think that is something that is really important. I mean, to give them some extra competencies in different various fields to really accompany them on the mobility. And one question I was asking, and we have discussed already about it as well. I mean, to what extent this project or the experiences you have made are transferable to other inter-university cooperations in Europe? How does it, in what way, and to what extent is it transferable?
You want me to answer that, Leslie, or you want?
Yeah, you can go on and then I can add things.
Okay. Now, I think it's transferable in more than one way. First of all, the content, as Leslie just said, for the content, we created the structure of the 5 phases of a student mobility, which we believe are common to basically any country, to any student, to any type of university. As you know, in Germany, we have 2 types of universities, technical universities and, well, general universities. And that may be true for other countries as well. There's always the leaving part. There's always an arrival in which you have to take care of similar problems. But of course, opening a bank account, finding a place to live, studying, writing exams are different to all the different countries. But if we were to extend this framework to, say, a preparation for studying in Spain or Lithuania, let's say, I think they could all find themselves in that, and of course start producing material on the basis of this framework. Another thing is the transferability maybe of some credits that you might obtain with that. Now, of course, we did not have ECBS when we started out with this framework, and as we just saw, a lot of the other credit recognition systems are still in the making, fortunately, but we made sure in setting up this program that all the home universities would be able to give credits to their students as need be, and according to their local circumstances, and sometimes, unfortunately, also, we heard this earlier, according to their local restrictions that they may experience. So some of the universities in our network said, well, we don't really want to give credit. And others said, yeah, we actually need our students to get credit for this kind of preparation. And so all the partners decided, yeah, we can decide from home what credits are going to be given. They're going to be given by the sending university. But still all the materials, the work, the teaching, the workshops are provided in a conjoint project. So everybody gets to sort of stay as they are in a way and still work together. And I think that is actually one of the core elements of working together on a European basis. You have to be able to keep your identity and allow for local circumstances and still work together.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Leslie, do you want to?
No, I think you said everything. And that's exactly what happened. Actually, none of us had the same way to give credit to the students, and it worked. I mean, as far as we could, depending on the possibilities we had, but we are still offering the course 1 year after the end of the project. So I think it's a good sign, and we hope it will go on like this.
Okay, yeah, great. Yeah, that's what I've understood as well. That, I mean, you have this flexibility and to give the host universities the flexibility to give the credits, and also how many credits you want to give. I mean, some give 3, others give 5 ECTS. It really depends on the local circumstances, and this is of course also something that I guess will be a big issue in the European universities alliances, that you have very different higher education systems that meet in these alliances. We already experienced this in the framework of Eucor as well, and maybe that could be a possibility here to answer to one question that has been posted in the question and answer section. I know that we have foreseen that for the end, but I think there was one question about our Eucor mobility, but it's in a way also maybe a question that is linked to your experience, whether the host institution decides to deliver the ECTS to the program, and it's in your case it's like this. It's the host institution that sends out the student that decides whether or to what extent an ECTS is given, and then it's the same thing in the Eucor example that I've presented earlier. There it's the same. It's the host institution that it's in our case, it's University de Haute-Alsace that gives the credit for this mobility. So it's not really I mean, there's no credits given by the institution that is where the student is experiencing the mobility, but it's the sending institution that gives the credit.
Right. For us, it depends actually. If the students, we have some incoming students, so it's the new way we use the course. If the student is actually currently in the university and is in an Erasmus program, for example, he can add the course in his or her learning agreement. It's something that happened.
That also shows the flexibility of the whole thing.
Exactly.
We started out saying, okay, the sending institution will give it, so I would give 3 credits, and maybe our partners from Belgium would say, no, 2's enough, that's all we need. And suddenly we noticed, yeah, we can use this to accompany an already existing mobility, as Luxembourg did. And they said, well, in that case, we're not sending, but we're not really receiving, we're something different. But we can use the course and use the whole structure and say, we are the master of ceremony here. And we sort of can design a structure around that existing course and say, yeah, we'll give them a course on site. and everybody's okay with that. So actually, I'm quite happy with that.
Okay. Yeah, Sarah?
Just one remark. I think this question concerns more the certificate of the ECBS project, because it was already asked at 11 o'clock.
Okay.
So maybe, I don't know, Janos, if you can answer this question for the ECBS certificate, or if we take this question to the later.
Yeah, we take it to the later session then. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. So now I would then would like to thank you again, Peter and Leslie, for the presentation and this very concrete example. And please stay on stage if you may. Donc, that way you can follow the discussions of and the upcoming examples that we still have on the list. Now I would like to pass over to the cross-border region of France and Italy, where we have two presenters as well, one Italian and one French, but American, but living in France. So I would like to welcome Amy Church-Morel, who is an associate professor at the Institut d'Administration des Entreprises at the Université de Savoy Mont Blanc, and researcher for management and economics. Amy's research and teaching focuses on diversity in teams and organizations, and the skills that facilitate collaboration in multicultural and multilingual environments. So welcome, Amy, and thank you for joining. And I would then also like to greet Gianmario Raimondi, who is full professor in Italian linguistics at the University of the Aosta Valley since 2002. Gianmario has been the local responsible in the Interreg Alcotra project that will be presented in a couple of minutes, which is about the professional formation professionnelle, donc the professional training on the French-Italian border. And Gianmario has been director of a degree also in applied foreign languages at the University of Aosta Valley from 2014 to 2019. And so now, welcome Gianmario as well. Thanks for joining. Now I would like to give the floor to you. I hope that you will be able to share your presentation. Now,
yes,
is it Amy or Gianmario?
It will be Amy.
Amy, okay, great. Thank you.
In the beginning and then after.
Great, I see it. Thank you.
Okay, good. So hello, and thank you for this invitation. We're going to give some background on the double diplomas that exist. So within the ECBS project, the French-Italian cross-border region has been represented by the universities of Savoy in Chambéry and Aosta. These two cities are linked for historical reasons, the former having been the capital of the Duchy of Savoy, before being replaced by Turin, on which the Aosta region has always depended. And these cities are deeply influenced by the long-standing cross-border dynamics around the Mont Blanc Massif. The collaboration between the universities began in 2005 with the institution of the first binational degree, which is a first level degree in applied foreign language, allowing the participating students to study abroad at the partner university. So all of the students, the Italian students participate, and Italian specialists from Chambéry. And this results in them receiving a binational recognition for their training courses. And then following this first degree, two other binational degrees have been launched more recently. So the first, so you have a master level degree also in applied languages, and a licence, so a bachelor level degree in law and political science.
Now for its more consolidated data set, and also for its intimate cross-border nature, The language double degree will be the object of a short statistical historical overview. Since 2006, the degree has graduated 705 Italian and French students with a binational qualification, with a number of students in international mobility that sums up to 836. 759 Italians, 77 French, an average of 50 Italian students and 5 French students per year. This gap is due to a structural difference in the organization on the two sides of the border. While in Aosta, both the French language and the study experience in Chambéry are mandatory. In Chambéry, the French-Italian degree is accessible only for students with an English-Italian major, which is 10-20 per year, and it's not mandatory for them. The 10-12 French students of the last 3 years is thus actually to be highlighted as a sort of success. Yes, you can pass on the slide.
Yes, I'm trying. It seems
Because
to have gotten
to
stuck
the
here.
to the internship practices, which is thank you. May represent another point of interest for cross-border experiences. In this regard, for Italian students, when France is chosen as a country, 63 cases, which is 10.8 of total internships. In half of the cases, internships are carried out in the cross-border French regions, Auvergne, Rhône-Alpes, or Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur, of which 2/3, 21, in border departments as Savoie, Alpes-Maritimes, or Savoie-Hôtal. As for French students, the situation of the last 2 years is easy to tell, because all of the 7 traineeships in Italy have been run in cross-border regions, 6 in Aosta Valley and 1 in Piedmont.
And so, as John Mario has already mentioned, we have internships that are practiced. There are also courses that are available specifically in preparation for language and society. And we wanted to put forth as an example of best practices the fact that these double diplomas have been supported and their development have been supported by several inter-region, inter-reg Alcutra projects from 2008 on. And we would like to propose a special focus on the most recent project, which is the FEAST project. So in French, this is Formation, Éducation et Aménagement des Synergies Territoriales, or in English, Training, Education, and Territorial Synergies Development. So with a budget of around 800,000 euros, this project financed many collaborations and events, and we'd like to share 2 of them specifically. So the first was a participation in the bid for the Mont Blanc Massifa to become the UNESCO World Heritage Site. So students were supervised by researchers in sociology to conduct interviews with citizens on both sides of the border about what the Mont Blanc represents to them. So this content contributed to the bid submitted recently last year. And a second project was the development of a business simulation game in which students played the role of hospitality professionals and tour operators, meeting and negotiating at a trade fair. So in both of these cases, the students worked together in French-Italian teams, and this gave them the opportunity to reinforce, obviously, their language and intercultural skills among some of the other adaptation skills that were mentioned in the 15 skills in the platform. So this is what we wanted to share with you to give you some of the context of the double diplomas that exist and the specific focus on the pedagogical courses that were able and special projects that were able to be developed with this FEAST project. So you have the coordinators are listed here. So unfortunately, they couldn't be with us today, but if you'd like more information on these particular pedagogical developments, you can feel free to contact them.
Thank you very much, Amy and Gian Mario. I really find this last example interesting because it kind of takes up the idea also of the micro credentials, because business games that are organized locally with a cross-border focus, or the this session about the Mont Blanc. This could be concrete examples how students can get together, come together and meet and have a European experience, but at a lower level than a double degree, let's say, but more on just meeting and coming together. And this, I mean, in what way do you think that this ECBS platform can contribute to add value to this type of activities? What do you think, Amy?
Well, I think that it makes explicit the skills and that are already developed within the program. And by integrating the portfolio in the process of the diploma, it gives students the opportunity to take a step back and become more aware and actually increase their ability to put a name to the skills that they've developed. And then on the institutional side, it gives some specific pedagogical identification of where and when these skills were developed and in what context. So I think those three elements are definitely potential elements for adding value to the program throughout with the ECBS platform.
Okay, yeah. So thank you very much then. And yeah, maybe we can see whether we have more questions at the end of this presentation block, but I would then go on to the next and last example that we want to show in this context here, which is the example of the Pyrenees region, la région des Pyrénées, the mountains between France and Spain. And I would therefore like to ask Professor Beltran Loris on stage, who is a full professor of ancient history and acting vice rector for internationalization and cooperation at the University of Zaragoza. But I cannot see him on stage for the moment. Maybe Johan, can you tell me if, there you are. So welcome, nice to have you here. You're acting vice rector for internationalization and cooperation at the University of Zaragoza in Spain. And you have benefited from research stays in Munich, Heidelberg, Rome, Oxford, and Paris. So you've been all over the places in Europe. And you have also been visiting professor at the École Normale Supérieure in 2010. And in addition to many other responsibilities at the University of Zaragoza, you have particularly been in charge of the recently selected proposal of the European Universities Initiative, the project called, or the alliance called UNITA, that is led by the University of Torino, and in which also the universities of Pau, Savoy Mont Blanc, Beira Interior in Portugal, and Timișoara in Romania are involved. So I'm looking forward to your presentation and your example, the example you would like to share with us of the cross-border region of Spain and France. And the floor is yours. I hope that you can share your presentation.
Oh, good morning, and thank you, Janos, for preparing this webinar. I thought you were going to share the,
okay.
If you are so kind.
Yeah, I can share it as well. 1 second.
I'm really an acting vice president since the elections have been held just right now. So
Okay.
Absolutely acting.
Okay, yeah, so I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. Well,
yeah.
since we have already introduced myself, we can go to the second slide if you like.
Okay.
Okay. Well, University of Zaragoza is the mid-range, according to Spanish levels, comprehensive research university. It's the public university of Aragon, and has several campuses all around the region. So he has also a function in structuring the region from this point of view. And we have quite a long border with France, more than 200 kilometers. And please, next slide. The cross-border activities are quite varied. Of course, mobility is one of them. You can see at the top left, just a small map. That is a tool we have to manage mobilities, which shows the number of incoming and outgoing students. We had in the last 5 years around 1,000 to 300 students coming from the neighboring universities in southern France and going from Zaragoza to them, mainly to Pau, l'Université de Pau et des Pays de la Tour, which is our main partner in southern France, but also with the different higher education institutions in the Bordeaux region, and also with Toulouse. Particularly, we are developing a vast range of double diplomas, mainly again with Pau, but also with other institutions, for instance, from l'École nationale supérieure de chimie, biologie et physique à Bordeaux, and a part of research projects which are not our main focus now. We are sharing, for instance, across the campus Iberus, which is a consortium of 4 Spanish universities. We have a common PhD program with the universities of Pau and Toulouse, which has to do also with heritage, with cross-border relations. And we are also developing a kind of, I think it's quite a useful tool for this kind of relations. Obviously, the situation in this part of Europe is quite different from the one which was shown by Eucor and the Greater Region, which are more compact entities. But in our case, we have the support of the government of Aragon and the government of Nouvelle-Aquitaine, and has supported several visits from multi-level delegations, including researchers, people interested in the education and high-level authorities of each university. And from them, double diplomas, research initiatives and projects have come out. I think it's quite useful. There was also the origin of the European Universities Initiative UNITA that we share with L'Université de Pau des Pays de la Tour and the University of Savoy Mont Blanc, as you said before, and which has also quite important cross-border elements, since we have 2 universities across the Pyrenees, Pau and Zaragoza, and 2 universities across the Alps, Savoy Mont Blanc and University of Torino. So it is also an interesting element. But just to finish, if you show the next slide, please. One of the interesting projects we have developed with the University of Pau has been a program, a 3-year program to launch 6 contracts per year, 3 funded by each university, to develop PhDs in co-tutel in the 2 universities. In the last call, this program has been a little bit reoriented because of the UNITA approval. So in the UNITA European University, we have 3 main thematics at first. One is cultural heritage, the other one is renewable energies, and the other one is circular economy. And we have now launched the last call, focusing these 3 initiatives, giving so a priority to the PhDs which are developed in this area. So the idea is to have 18 PhD after 6 years, and it is a program with a great success. We receive a lot of applications for these PhDs. And that is the main points I wanted to share with you. And if you have any question.
Yes, thank you very much for this insight of your activities on the cross-border region of Spain and France. And I mean, I was particularly interested in your activities in the field of the PhD students. So apparently you have organized some events, especially to this community of PhD students, which we did not mention for the moment yet, because the other examples that have been shown were more on a bachelor and master's level. And what was your experience with these meetings? I mean, were they, and to what extent the PhD students were interested in cross-border cooperation? I mean, because I assume that PhD students are really thinking very international, and maybe cross-border cooperation is not really in their main focus.
Yeah, thank you. As I said before, we have the support of the governments of Oregon and Nouvelle-Aquitaine, which Pau is placed also, to organize different kinds of activities. And one of them was our first doctoral day that we held in Zaragoza. Next one, when the pandemic allows us to organize, it will be in Pau. And especially, I think that the PhD students are some very European kind of students, because as you know, as we all know, young researchers have to move, and have to move a lot in other countries. And most of these doctoral students had already an experience, those from Zaragoza in Pau, and those from Pau in Zaragoza, besides other experiences. And then for them, all this kind of cross-border experiences in the linguistic domain, in the intercultural domain, in the inter-academic domain, because that's also a very interesting part, since our university systems are quite different, and also our way of approaching many things. So when we show what in ECBS was being developed, there was an enormous interest from these students to know more about these possibilities. They were eager to use the platform as soon as it was ready. So I think it was a very positive experience.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. That's I mean, it's interesting that apparently PhD students who probably, yeah, as I've said initially, are by nature very international, still interested also in the close neighborship, or even especially for that reason, maybe as well, to make experiences also in cross-border regions. So that's very inspiring and encouraging, and I find this example really interesting also for us on the Eucor level. I think we can also learn from that, and it would be great if the ECBS platform would be a way to promote this further and to certify this type of experiences as well. So that's great. So would then like you to ask you to thank you again for your presentation and the time that you have spent for this for this discussion round. I would then like to ask everyone to switch on the camera again, so that we can maybe have a joint session here about or of all cross-border experiences that we have shared so far. And yeah, in the question and answers section, I don't really see much for the moment, but maybe it comes during the discussion. But maybe, yeah, Christian, how and Emilie, what is your impression? How can we use the experiences here and promote through the platform? I mean, how can we, or the other way around, how can the platform be of specific use for these experiences and examples that we just heard? And maybe Christian?
Yes, yes. So yes, about destination or about the use of the platform. Okay, so I think we have to make we have still job to do to make the promotion for the students, and of course, PhD students are also good public audience to this, and maybe with European universities also a way to make the platform useful also. And I hope that there will be some colleagues from your university who will join the project. I think it could be great if it will be used by other universities. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting to see that there's apparently a strong interest of students to get credits for, let's say, a mobility that is underneath a double diploma, and that is more about discovering other countries, other languages, other cultures. And the offer is not that large yet for the moment, and maybe within these European universities we could that there are possibilities to, and also in the cross-border areas, possibilities to develop more offers in this field to reach finally this higher amount of student mobility. Because I mean, when you look at the European universities, I still have in mind this objective of 50% mobility of the students of the member universities of the European universities. So it's really an objective that is really difficult to reach.
Yes, it's a great challenge. Yes.
Yeah, it's in normal terms. And I think these micro credentials, or let's say experiences and mobilities that are low level in a way that there is not really an obligation to get a degree, it allows to reach better results in terms of mobility.
Yes, it's true, and we can see that virtual mobilities are developing, and of course a project like UCBS and the certification through UCBS is a way to recognize these kind of mobilities, which are not always visible for a student or for a company who want to hire a student. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If I may add something.
Yes, please.
Of course, this range around reaching this 50% of all students' mobility is really challenging. So besides virtual mobility, I think that micro-credentials are a very important part, because they can be done or virtually or in a combined way. But we think also in the UNITA framework of short mobilities. And for instance, there's one kind that we have experienced in the University of Zaragoza that we call a familiar name, Rural Erasmus. That means short internships done by our students in rural areas, in small villages, veterinary medicine, education, and other. And so we have included this rural Erasmus, as a possibility in the European University Initiative. That means that students, I don't know, from Romania can come to Aragon in Spain for 15 days or 1 month activities related with the job, with what they are studying. So I think this kind of short mobilities are also very, or could be also very helpful to reach this 50% mobility that we are asked to reach. Thank you.
Yeah, yes, indeed. Yeah, Gian Mario?
Yes, I wanted to connect to what has been said. Mostly about the fact that the importance of the perspectives of the sending universities. Each of our university knows very well what happens in its mobility and the actual cases that may come out from the experience that we already make in cross-border experiences. And the other point, and so ECBS is very flexible from this point of view. It allows to certificate also short experiences or internships and what else. And the other point I wanted to add is the question of the marketing of our university. Because I think that if we may say, our university not only allows you, the student, to do cross-border experience, but it can also certificate it. It can also assess it to the world. This is a good point for the marketing of I say marketing entre guillemets of our universities.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I was also thinking of one aspect that has been brought in a pre-discussion brought in by Peter and Leslie, is that in their example of the Greater Region of this language and intercultural course, they were surprised that not only students who plan to do a mobility were registering to this course, but also students who are already in a Erasmus mobility. And how do you explain this, Peter or Leslie? Peter.
I think this is a question I should rather go to Leslie, because
okay, I don't remember. It was Leslie, yes, who brought this up. Yeah.
So actually, it was not the profile of students we were thinking about when we first designed the course, but it's something that happened very naturally. Actually, we offered the course in a language offer of the Language Center. And it happened maybe 2 or 3 semesters ago. Students came and said, okay, I've just arrived in Luxembourg. I don't know the city yet. I don't know the university. I don't know how it works. I have an accommodation, but I'm thinking changing, moving. I still need to improve my linguistic skills. And so they asked us if they could take the class. So we said, okay, why not? We just warned them that maybe the first activities in the 2 first phases would be a bit irrelevant for them, but they stayed and they took part in the class like other students. And nowadays, I think we have, I mean, at Luxembourg, sorry, at least, we have more students in this case than students preparing their mobility. So
yeah,
the demands that we have to take into account.
If I could, I would like to add maybe a general remark on this whole issue. I think at the end of the project is something you shouldn't do, but I think I have to admit we got one thing pretty much wrong at the outset of the project, which was, what do our target students look like? What are the profiles? And how can we get to them? That is a huge issue. And I think Gian Mario just hinted at that with the term marketing. I think it's a huge issue of reaching out to students and making them aware that there is a possibility of going abroad, that it gets them something, that it's not as hard as they think, and that they need to actually prepare a little bit for it to profit more from it. As soon as anybody goes on a hiking trip, they will go out and buy shoes, they will go out and buy a rucksack and clothing against bad weather and everything. But curiously enough, this is not something that students are aware of, that preparing for a mobility is a good thing as well. So I think we need to do a lot more work here. And secondly, one thing is we were not completely aware of at the outset of the project is the difficulties that come with administrative constraints, with the mental timing process of when do students decide to go on a mobility, how long would they want to go, how do they make their choices. And I think there's a lot of, well, probably even research to be done here to promote this a lot further and to reach the goal, Janusz, that you just mentioned of the 50% mobility.
Yeah, that was kind of the thought behind my question. That is probably indeed the question is who is really the target, the public cible, the target of the action, and your example showed
50%,
yeah.
It's almost everyone, isn't it?
Yes, it's really a big number. I mean, when you look at the Eucor mobility within Eucor, we are far below 50%, of course, but because there we have other difficulties when it comes to public transportation system, but also some of the difficulties we face are also linked to administrative barriers that are still there, unfortunately. And so that's why the example that I showed from Université de Haute-Alsace is I think good to make it level down a little bit the barriers and make this first experience, this first step, and see what the neighboring country is about. And that's where really the cross-border regions have an added value maybe towards others, but the European universities can still learn from this in a way, because maybe there can be some sorts of low-level experiences that can then lead to a double degree or a European degree at the end. I would like to also greet here Frédéric Seidel, who is now visible also on screen, who is my homologue in the cross-border region. She is Secretary General, Managing Director of the University of the Greater Region. And since the Greater Region is today represented by the language program that we have just heard, but also, of course, by Frédéric with the grouping of universities that is existing on this cross-border region. Frédéric will do a final speech at the end, but maybe are there any other remarks or comments on what we have already heard, also in the very beginning, from the member of the European Parliament, Laurence Vareng, or the presentation of Clara Engels-Perregni from the European Commission? Gian Mario, yes?
Yes, thank you. I was wondering, it's quite a geopolitical question. While I don't remember who was speaking, I was thinking about what is the reaction of a particular European area, which is the Eastern Europe, those countries that we in Italy call the Visegrad countries. about university mobility in the Erasmus program, because I think that there's a lot of work to do, and it would be useful to include those areas more and more in our projects.
Yeah, indeed, I think it's. I mean, the current political situation also shows about the negotiation of the budget for the EU shows that maybe the point of view is not always the same wherever you're at in Europe. So I think indeed that the higher education institutions can be a door opener there also to cooperate and communicate more. And it would be indeed great if we could get more universities from the Central and Eastern Europe on board also for the ECBS project. But since the European Universities Initiative had this criterion of the geographical balance, fortunately, I would say there are already a lot of universities from Central and Eastern Europe involved in the European universities that have been selected. So this is a good starting point, and maybe we could indeed try to get them on board as well in this platform, because I think that the interest of the students is very high to experience, to make experiences in European universities and to get these micro credentials. And yeah, and one last question I would like to ask is the role of the language. I think that a lot of the mobility is probably, I mean, that's what we are experiencing here at Eucor. I mean, it's limited by the language that not only all of the students of our cross-border regions, we count about 117,000, which is a huge amount of students, but not all of them, of course, speak the language of the neighbor country. And this is even more difficult in the European universities. I mean, we could, of course, then switch all to English, but not all courses are offered in English. And how, I mean, your experience in the Saarland is maybe a good example here. What role does it take? I mean, these language courses, are they really triggering the mobility, or do you think that your language courses really help let's say a triggering effect? Do they have a triggering effect on the student mobility in your region?
Now, frankly, we don't have any. I believe the question is addressed to me. We do not have any viable statistics on that. We don't have the possibility to follow up. Did students want to go somewhere before they came to a language course, or did they not want and then maybe changed their mind? But I think it's safe to say that that a language course is basically the golden pathway into a foreign culture. If you don't speak the language, I mean, you will not really dive into that. And I think one thing we are doing is trying to make people conscious of two things. First of all, English is not enough. It's important. We give a lot of English courses. I'm not, saying English is bad or anything. We're all speaking English right now, aren't we? But definitely, and this was also in the project description of our local initiative, or our local European University initiative. So I think that's very important. Of course, as a former president of the Association of German Language Centers, I can't stress enough that having language courses and language centers is extremely important to my mind. And one other thing I think that language centers or language courses can do is, through their offer, and that we're entering the field of didactics here, is showing, well, it's not as hard as you think. Because I think some of the obstacles that people see, which aren't really there, are that for example, French seems extremely difficult to them. This may have stem from a not so perfect experience in school. And some things that I think we try to do and that others try to do, and I think we do have a little bit of success here, is to stress, yeah, well, it's not easy, but no language is. But it doesn't matter if you're perfect or not, you can communicate, and that's what we try to teach them. And I think that is a pathway, and if we can combine that, and that's something we do try to do here, especially of course in the French courses, where we can use the tramway to afterwards cross the border and practice, is to teach them that and show them there's a whole culture that comes with it, a whole set of millions of new people that you could get to meet. And this is the whole fun of it. And I think language courses can do a lot with that.
Okay, how's this seen on the maybe on the French-Spanish border, Christian?
Yeah, sure. The primary rates is very important. I think cross-border cooperation and of course European universities are tools to reach what is expecting the European Union. I would like to recall that there was I think it's in 2017 there was the Göteborg summit, and in this summit Europe says that they express the wish that any citizen of Europe has to know 3 languages, including their maternal language. And so, of course, Peter talked about English and English is sufficient, of course. And maybe cross-border cooperation is a good way to reach this goal of Göteborg Summit, because maybe it's quite more natural for us to learn, of course, English at school, but also at university, but also Spanish or maybe Portuguese. It's more or less close, but yes, I think so. And in fact, it is one goal of the European University, the UNITA, that Francisco Beltran spoke before. So it's about the intercompression of Roman language, and in this way, so we build this university to try to this alliance of universities to try to overcome this problem of language you mentioned. Considering the languages which are not too far.
Yeah, may I add something?
Yes, please.
As has been just told, in UNITA, we think that intercomprehension can be a very useful tool. Of course, in the case of languages which are relative, I mean, it does not work for Chinese and Spanish, of course, but with Portuguese, Spanish, Italian, French, and even with Romanian, it can make easier the understanding, at least the communication. But what we are trying is to also have strategies of, so to say, friendly language teaching. I mean, our idea is that the students from Po can go to Torino and then attend 2 classes in Italian, but having the possibility of exams, materials, tutorships done in English or in French. So that makes quite easier. So you have the intercultural experience, you are approaching the local language, which, as was said by Peter, is absolutely essential to have a real experience of the other country, but you have some bridges that make easier the communication. And I think that in a world that is still, I'm ancient historian, and I know that things change across the time. No much time ago, we spoke all Latin, so things change. There are other languages besides English. There's German, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and spoken by thousands of millions of people, hundreds of, even thousands of millions of people. So we have to study also other alternatives, especially now that in the European Union will be just one country with an English speaking half besides Irish country. So that's our reality now. We must think also about that.
Yeah, indeed. I think it's you're touching a very central point. I mean, it's a big challenge. We all know that for Europe to have all these different languages, and that we have to deal with our limited capacities in talking English all the time. But yeah, hopefully we can find alternatives and also continue, of course, with the multilingual capacities. I think it's really essential to make the difference also on of Europe towards other spaces in places in the world. I mean, it's still something that we have to defend in a way, and otherwise the mobility will be really limited. So I would like to close this discussion here, and thank you very much for having participated in it. And I mean, the format is new to all of us, especially to me as moderator. It's the first conference that I had to moderate virtually. So thank you for your patience and your participation.
Very well, Janos.
Thank you. And now I would like to give the floor to Frédéric, and you can, to give maybe some concluding remarks. Frédéric is Managing Director, as I said, of the University of the Greater Region, in the cross-border region of France, Germany, Luxembourg, Belgium. And I'm looking forward to what you have learned from this morning, and some concluding remarks from your side. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. And thank you very much, Janos, for the excellent moderation of this event this morning, and without a break. And yes, I will not present the University of the Greater Region. You already discovered through the presentation of the project Language Center of the Greater Region, but I would like to stress that our network of 6 universities had it was a very good pleasure to participate in this project for all our members. And I'm very pleased to conclude this final event too. Not only because our large audience could learn about the Erasmus Plus project, European cross-border skills set up by universities having cross-border relations, but also because it illustrated with very interesting and concrete examples the dynamism of cross-border university cooperation and its innovative character. And I particularly appreciated the enthusiastic message of Mrs. Laurence Fareng, convinced of the major role played by cross-border cooperation in the development of the European higher education area, but also for the regional development. And we all have also listened very carefully to Mrs. Engels Pereny at a time where many European universities are emerging. We are particularly attentive to the position of the European Commission and the subject of micro-credentials. They provide flexibility and also allow validation of more formal or informal competences that might not be formally validated in a traditional study program. And I noted that the validation of cross-border skills through badges or certificates is perfectly in line with the spirit of European universities. So the time of crisis has highlighted the importance of border regions in the process of European integrations. And today's event showed examples of university cooperation in 4 border regions: the cross-border free study unit of Eucor,
the hybrid course to prepare mobility in the Greater Region, the language double degree programs on the French-Italian border, and the cross-border PhD cocktail and the border between France and Spain. And all of them could be replicated on a European scale, as long as a climate of trust and stability is established in the partnership. So this project could not have been created in a hurry. They are usually the result of long reflections, during which the partners have got to know and to understand each other. This is also an important message, I think, today. We are very pleased that Erasmus Plus recognizes such cross-border cooperations in the framework of the Key Action Strategic Partnership. And we would be all the more pleased if new possibilities for supporting and disseminating cross-border projects at European level could be explored within new initiatives or sectoral programs. And we are very looking for the new Erasmus Plus program and the new possibilities to develop cross-border cooperation. I was very pleased to hear that that green mobility will be a high priority of the next Erasmus Plus programs. And I think thanks to the proximity of our universities and the cross-border grouping, we could address this priority in this way. The moment of conclusion is also the time to take stock of our event and more broadly of the 3-year cooperation within the project. And on behalf of the 7 other partners, I would like to thank the University of Pau and the Pays de la Dour for having brought together cross-border universities 4 years ago around the idea of this certificate, and for the very good coordination of the project. It was a real challenge to manage such a broad and international partnership. And today we are all very pleased to have created this certificate together. And Christian Paroissien, Émilie Desconnet, and also Magali Estevez explained perfectly the stages of our joint project. We had very long and intense reflections on the definition of intercultural competences, and we are particularly proud of the framework of cross-border skills. And I would like to thank the other project partner for the very fruitful cooperation too. I think also the feeling of being part of a very solid network is also one of the most important benefits of the project. Moreover, we are all grateful to the Eucor AGTT for having coordinated this event and successfully meeting the technical challenge of an online event. And again, many thanks to Janos for the moderation this morning. Normally, at this point, I would fetch the flowers to thank the main actors of this event. In these times of crisis, the flowers remain virtual, but our thanks are no less sincere. Finally, I would like to thank the large audience who attended today for the interest and participation. We remain at your disposal to provide with you more information on the Ecbs project, but also on the best practices and experiences shared with you during the morning session. Have a nice day and a good project.
Thank you very much, Frédéric, for these very kind closing remarks. And yeah, I wish also to all of the participants a good time, stay safe, and take care. Thank you very much for having participated to all of the Ecbs partners. And thank you again, Frédéric, for the closing remarks. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.